Remember the old saying, children should be seen and not heard? Well, forget it. The younger generation have had enough of the way the oldies are running the world, and they want us to know they can do better. The latest global protest phenomenon has school kids going on strike, abandoning the classroom and taking to the streets to demand action on climate change. It's a campaign that started with one teenager in Sweden, and it's now grown to include 1.4 million angry and noisy students from 125 countries. And they're not just loud, they're also very smart. So perhaps we all need to be aware the times really are a-changin'. They can be uncompromising and argumentative. It's almost a given teenagers will defy their parents.
Black will stand out against the light blue.
But the latest generation of kids is taking civil disobedience to a new level.
Students united will never be divided!
Defiantly, they've chosen to skip class and wag school. They've hit the streets, screaming for action on climate change.
They are the reason I'm here today. If they want me to go back in school, they know exactly what they need to do.
In the past 6 months, student demonstrations across the country have infuriated as many people as they've impressed.
Kids should go to school. That's what we're committed to.
The reason is simple. Are they too young to protest?
Yes, they should still be at school. It's fine to be political, it's fine to strike, but do it on the weekend.
But angering adults is precisely what the children of this revolution want. Why not take this action on the weekend?
Well, we strike on a weekday because we can't vote because we're too young. And the one very powerful thing that we have is our education.
These high school students from Castlemaine in country Victoria are responsible for the noise here in Australia. Harriet O'Shea Carr, Milou Albrecht and Callum Nielsen Bridgefoot are empowered by their success, which began with a protest outside a local politician's office.
We were just thinking, we're getting 30 people and then we got 50 and we're like, this is crazy, this is great.
As they say, from little things, big things grow.
We cannot let fear stop us from action, as it has stopped our leaders. We will fight this climate emergency.
That one small demonstration was a call to arms. And in March, 60,000 students here ignored education authorities and turned truant. They brought cities to a standstill. But the Aussies were just part of a global campaign that involved a staggering 1.4 million students.
We want to do it because we need to do it. Literally, we're fighting for our lives.
Incredibly, it was the most unlikely of environmental campaigners who awakened this generation.
We are angry.
Greta Thunberg was a lone teenager in Sweden, quietly determined to make a point about climate change.
We children say that you are stealing our future.
She didn't scream on the streets, but in her own unique way, she gained the world's attention.
We are doing this because we have no other choice. We are desperate to make something happen.
Sweden is one of the most progressive countries in the world. Its health and education systems are first class, and the Scandinavian nation is on its way to becoming one of the first cashless societies globally. So it's perhaps not surprising that out of this forward-thinking country comes a teenage girl equally enlightened.
I just felt that nothing was happening, so then I decided that someone has to do it, and I want to be able to, when I grow older, to look back and say I did everything I could.
Greta Thunberg's campaign began 9 months ago.
Every Friday, we will sit outside the Swedish Parliament.
To attract the attention of politicians, she decided to wag school every Friday, devoting the day to a solitary protest outside Sweden's Parliament House. She figured saving the world was more important than studying.
I love school, Actually. So I'm not doing this because I don't like school.
It's seen as significant globally to sacrifice your education.
It's very symbolic because we children say, why should we study for a future that may not exist anymore?
Do you like the idea of her missing school once a week?
No, I don't. I think it's a terrible idea. And I was completely against it in the beginning. So we said, there must be some other way of doing it. But she had made up her mind. But then again, I mean, she has proved that it works, It wouldn't have worked if she'd done it on a Sunday. Det blir jättekonstigt.
Greta's father, Svante, chaperones his daughter and takes the weekly Instagram strike update pic that's fed to her 1.5 million global followers.
It's important to make a stand and to protest against something that is not right. And since I cannot vote, this is one of the few ways I can make my voice heard.
Today is the 37th consecutive Friday Greta's turned up here. In that time, she's gone from unknown teenager to global climate change wonder child.
That change is coming, whether you like it or not.
She's been invited to speak at the UN,
I want you to panic.
the European Union,
I know many of you don't want to listen to us. You say we are just children.
and to political leaders around the world.
Did you hear me? Yes. Is my English okay? Yes. Because I'm beginning to wonder.
In Australia, our leaders told students to stay in school and only protest on weekends. They say there should be more class time and less activism. What do you say to that?
If they would have done their job, what they're supposed to do, then we wouldn't have been here. We are doing this because they are not doing anything.
Greta's success, which has now seen her nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, is even more inspiring when you consider what she's endured these past 2 years. She suffered depression and anorexia and was then diagnosed with autism.
People like you must do more for our planet.
On top of that, her increasingly public profile makes her a target for critics who dismiss her as an upstart school kid. How do you cope with that hate?
I had expected that since most people are not aware fully of this crisis, then people won't understand why we're school striking. All they are saying is like, you should go to school and we shouldn't panic and so on. And then they attack me personally. It's quite hilarious to see them trying to get whatever they can.
On the other side of the world is Levi Draheim.
May 8th, interviewing Levi.
Whereas Greta is an introvert, Levi is exactly the opposite. The cheeky 11-year-old American is fighting the same climate change battle his way.
I hate the cigarette filters. I feel very angry at past generations for the actions that they were taking and still are taking to destroy our future and our amazing world. And if she dies, we die.
Is it that dramatic?
Yeah, it is dramatic, but it's reality. It's just so scary thinking that this might not be here and I might not be able to show my children that this is where I used to play when I was younger.
Levi's protest is fuelled by his fear. The water around where he lives on one of Florida's fragile islands is getting perilously close to his home.
What concerns me most about climate change is the rising seas, because that it's basically going to wash away my barrier island and this home that I live on.
That's a pretty frightening prospect. Coming up, an 11-year-old's drastic fight.
Now we need your help.
And protest fever spreads to Australia's kids.
Do you feel like pioneers of your generation?
I like the word.
But what do their parents think?
Parenting them with our values.
That's next on 60 Minutes. 11-year-old Levi Draheim is no superhero, but he is trying to save the planet. He's so angry older generations have ignored climate change, he's joined 20 other American kids to take a stand.
We are the Juliana Plaintiffs.
The group, known as the Juliana Plaintiffs, is suing the United States government over its lack of action.
Now we need your help.
That whole blue area there.
It's where I live, I live right here on this barrier island.
Australian lawyer Danny Noonan is helping with the case. And today he's showing Levi estimates of sea level rises near his home over the coming decades.
3/4 plus of your home is going to be flooded or underwater.
That's crazy.
So the really important thing to convey about these plaintiffs is they're not figureheads, they're not symbolic, they're actually suffering concrete harms right now from climate change.
Why is it important to have children as part of this lawsuit?
Well, young people have the most at stake when it comes to the current climate crisis.
No one would doubt Levi's commitment to the cause. But there are questions about if he and all the other student protesters really understand what they're getting themselves into.
Do you know much about the science behind climate change?
I have been studying about the science of climate change, but I'm not very good at explaining it.
What we have to look at here is the ability of young people, whether they're 8 or 10 or 12, the ability they have to discriminate and to understand the full picture of what's going on here.
Kevin Donnelly is a former school teacher and now academic with the Australian Catholic University. He's concerned kids like Levi are being used by parents and lawyers to peddle their own views.
I'd be concerned if parents are using their children, some as young as 6 or 8, as political pawns, if you like, in this whole debate about climate change.
When people say that these lawyers are using you children as mouthpieces, are they right?
Nope. We are doing it because we want to do it, because we need to do it. Literally, we're fighting for our lives.
Back in country Victoria, Harriet O'Shea Carr, Malou Albrecht and Callum Nielsen Bridgefoot know what they're doing does attract criticism.
What's the response from the public like?
We normally get a couple people that are walking by and swearing at us and go back to school.
For Malou and Callum, it's nothing new. Their families are environmental activists and both kids have gone to rallies before.
I'm in Bridget McKenzie's office.
We'll make the table twice as long.
Their mums, Caroline and Susie, are completely supportive.
I don't feel it's something we're forcing them into.
Are they influenced by your views at all?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're parenting them with our values.
I only told Callum that when we were going.
But for Harriet's parents, Maggie and Dave, it's different. Until now, activism has been foreign to their family.
She came home and informed us she was going to strike for the climate, and we were very surprised and had no idea about what that meant.
We'll just try. If there's a chance that this could make a difference, we'll do it. We'll try it.
After starting small, the Castlemaine trio realised greater defiance would lead to greater impact. So, like Greta in Sweden, they decided to go on strike from school every Friday.
So you're willing to compromise your education, to compromise your marks, to compromise your future?
I think there's no point in us having an education if we don't have a world to use our education in.
And Malou, Nana's coming to the train station as well.
Is it something you're concerned about, your children missing school to go to this strike?
Oh,
not at all.
Take the banner.
I think this is an amazing learning opportunity in terms of, them exercising their democratic right.
How do you feel about them missing out on classes?
It does concern us about what impact it would have on her schooling and education, but she's not doing this frivolously at all. But they want to have an impact.
It didn't take long for other students to join in, transforming the movement into a nationwide teenage protest phenomenon.
Are you surprised by how quickly it spread?
Definitely. I always thought it was quite a radical thing to do.
Late last year, the first national school climate change strike attracted not only thousands of students.
Our only power is our education, so by not going to school, we are saying how important this is.
But also the disapproval of Canberra.
We don't support the idea of kids not going to school to participate in things that can be dealt with outside of school. What we want is more learning in schools and less activism in schools.
Every Friday, some of the students in Castlemaine are taking a day off school. How badly is their education going to be impacted by this action?
I think as a parent I'd be genuinely worried that their education will suffer, that standards will fall, and that they'll be disadvantaged in terms of those other students who are staying on in the classroom actually being taught.
Are they too young to have an opinion?
The voting age is 18. I mean, learning how to drive, you can't do it at 12 or 14. And so when you look at how we operate as a society, there are age limits, if you like, where children are not mature enough, not sophisticated enough. Similarly, I don't believe they should be taking strike action because they're not capable, I'd suggest, of making a critically informed decision.
We're not striking because we want to get out of school. We love school and we love to learn. We are striking because we feel we're being forced by these climate deniers, and we don't think we should feel guilty for skipping school. We think they should feel guilty for making us skip school.
We began striking with our friends around Castlemaine. Then switched.
The ultimate success for Malou, Callum and Harriet was the second school climate change protest 2 months ago.
Show me what democracy looks like!
Incredibly, 60,000 of their peers also downed pens and abandoned classrooms across the country.
This is our future that the politicians are destroying, and it's not fair.
It was really amazing standing up on that stage, on the steps, and looking over the thousands of people here because of what we started in Australia. It's quite amazing, yeah.
Are you proud of that moment?
Yeah, definitely.
Back in Sweden, Greta Thunberg went on strike 2 days ago for the 39th time. The Swedish teen is still surprised at how her solo strike last August galvanised a generation.
It makes me feel very hopeful because before I started school striking, I thought that young people, my generation, we were lazy and we didn't care about these things.
The Castlemaine trio will also continue to protest in the hope that one day they can influence future decisions.
Do you feel like pioneers of your generation?
I like the word. I normally just think like this is what we need to do, so we're doing it. Like we are fighting for like our future too. We do just sort of feel like it's our obligation. We don't really feel like it's about us. It's about the planet and the safety of everything. And like, I don't know, I've never really thought of it as like some heroic act. It's just something that we need to do.
Hello, I'm Sarah Arbo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.